Today, we're diving deep into a world that, well, it operates way outside our usual understanding. We're talking about the mystical path of an Aghori practitioner. And what's really fascinating is how these ancient, occult powers are supposedly being used to solve very modern problems. We're talking everything from a haunting in Canada to a love triangle in the UK. So yeah, let's get right into it.
Just let that sink in for a moment. This goes way beyond just being unconventional, right? This is a complete flip of what society tells us is pure. The Aghori philosophy is basically saying that real immense power is found in the very things we're taught to run away from. It's a pretty radical idea, and it forces you to ask, what do we really mean when we call something sacred or profane?
And that right there, that's the big question we're tackling today. This isn't just some abstract philosophical discussion. Oh no, we're going to connect these ancient and, let's be honest, pretty shocking practices to actual real-world cases. We're talking jealousy, possession, heartbreak, happening all over the world.
Okay, so if we want to get how these powers are actually used, we've got to first understand where they come from. The whole foundation of the Aghori path is built on a set of beliefs that are, well, they're wildly different from what most of us think of as spirituality. So, let's break this down. What does this actually mean? Well, the night is a big deal because it's believed the veil between our world and others is thinner, so you can tap into some seriously powerful forces. And embracing the impure, that's all about proving that the divine is everywhere, even in things that scare us. Then there's this idea that our body is just a rented house. It's this powerful way of saying, hey, this physical thing is temporary. It's all part of a much bigger spiritual journey that, for them, leads straight back to Lord Shiva. And that brings us to probably the most controversial part of the Aghori path. This is a practice that gets sensationalized a lot, but the practitioner we're looking at gives it a very specific and very spiritual context. Now, the key thing here, according to the source, is the mindset. It's not about lust at all. It's described as a yogic method. The idea is that by staying in this deep meditative state, focused entirely on Lord Shiva, the practitioner can actually harness these incredible energies that you just can't access any other way. All right, so with that philosophical background laid out, let's get to the action. How does all this translate into actual encounters with the supernatural? The practitioner talks about several run-ins with unseen entities he claims he was able to subdue and even command.
So picture this. You're in an ancient, crumbling fort in Rajasthan. It's totally isolated. And this is where our practitioner decides to spend the night. He's not there by accident. He's deliberately seeking out a place that's just soaked in history and, well, spiritual energy. Okay, so he's meditating and suddenly, bam! A loud bang shatters the quiet. He looks up and sees a group of female spirits just appearing, trying to freak him out, changing their shapes, making scary noises. But he's totally unfazed. He just sprinkles some holy water, charged up with mantras, and they immediately calm down. Turns out, they were all murdered there centuries ago. And here's where it gets really interesting. He decides to keep one of the spirits with him, one who is a victim of a terrible assault, because he believes her specific energy can actually help mend broken relationships.
The next entity he talks about, this is a whole different ballgame. We're talking about a Beetle. And this isn't your average ghost. This is described as a king of the spirit world, a hugely powerful and intelligent being.
And the place where he meets this thing? Just as bizarre. A massive, dried-up drain, apparently miles long. So he's walking through this desolate place at night, and he says the beetle just comes flying through the air right towards him.
And this is where everything flips. The Batal, this king of ghosts, suddenly finds it can't do anything to him. It's powerless against the Aghoris' connection to a higher power. This isn't a fight with fists or force, it's a battle of spiritual authority. And instead of destroying the entity, the practitioner does something else entirely. He recruits it. This spirit king basically becomes his supernatural operative, ready to be sent on missions anywhere in the world.
And that right there, that brings us to the real heart of all this. You see, these encounters aren't just spooky stories. They're basically a recruitment drive. He's building a spiritual toolkit that he then uses to solve very real, very human problems all around the world.
I mean, it sounds like something out of a comic book, right? How does an Aghori use a spirit king to solve a 21st century love triangle? But according to him, this is exactly how it works. These ancient powers are being used to tackle the same old problems we all know: love, jealousy, betrayal, just in a completely modern context.
Okay, before we jump into the case files, there's one more entity you need to know about. The Chalawa. You could think of it as a shapeshifter. It's this tricky spirit that can morph into animals or even sound like a crying baby to trick people.
All right, so this chart pretty much sums up his international caseload. You've got a case in Canada where a woman was possessed by a spirit she picked up on a trip to India. He claims he pulled it out and trapped it in a bottle. Then in England, a guy leaves his fiancée because of a mind control spell. The betel that Spirit King was sent in to break it. Over in Australia, a couple's marriage is falling apart because of black magic and a Chalawa. That entity got removed. And in the UK, another relationship was sabotaged by magic, and that negative energy was neutralized.
So what's the big takeaway here? We're seeing this pattern, right? These ancient, really esoteric traditions are being used like a spiritual toolkit to fix these timeless human problems. From his point of view, these aren't just psychological issues. They have spiritual roots, and so they need spiritual solutions.
But after all this talk about taming spirits and these dark rituals and supernatural fights, the practitioner brings it all back to one simple central idea. All that power? That's not the point. It's just a side effect.
Yeah, after all these wild stories, he lands on this really surprising point. Controlling spirits, breaking curses, that's not the goal. That's just what happens along the way. The real purpose of this whole intense journey is just one thing: to get closer to the divine, to Lord Shiva, the source of it all.
And when he's asked, so how do you find that connection? He doesn't talk about some complicated ritual. He points to places with just immense spiritual energy. He talks about the mountains behind Kedarnath or Trimbakeshwar in Maharashtra and calls them heavens on earth. Places so powerful, he says, that you just forget about all your worldly stuff.
And his final quote just wraps up the whole philosophy perfectly. This body, with all its problems and wants, that's not really you. It's just a rented house, a place you're staying for a little while. The real journey for an Aghori is the soul's journey, and all these practices, they're just the tools you use to get there.
So, that leaves us with one last big question, doesn't it? In our world of technology and science where we try to explain absolutely everything, what do we do with a belief system like this one? Is there still room for ancient faith, for mystery, for powers that just don't fit into our neat little boxes? It's definitely something to think about.